So what's going on, YouTube? Today is Tuesday. So I went to the gym this morning and I was actually I was listening to my audiobook because I have my book club tonight. And the book we're reading is Stop Acting Rich. And I'm going to talk about an interesting story that was in this book. And for those of you who haven't heard me say, Thomas Stanley, Dr. Thomas Stanley, is a guy who has put a lot of research into who the actual real millionaires are. This guy has some great work. Okay, but this story that I'm about to tell is a kind of interesting one. Because before I went off on this studying who millionaires are and their lifestyle and finding out what they're doing different than the middle class and poor, I didn't have much knowledge. I used to think that the millionaires were the ones that were driving around in the BMWs and things like that. So let me get into the story. So in this book, he studies decamillionaires. That's people with $10 million or more net worth. So not your average Joe. So one of the guys wanted to take him out for lunch. So he gave him the address and wanted to meet him, and this was in Texas. So when Thomas Stanley gets to the place, he looks at this place and he's like, what is this? It looks like an industrial building. Like, what is it? It looks like a rundown manufacturing building or something, right? So he's listening. He's looking at this building and he's just like, wow, this looks like a dump, kind of there, right? Walks inside. He sees picnic tables with like little tablecloths draped over the picnic tables. But this is where this guy wants to eat, the decamillionaire. Gets inside, sees the guy, they sit down and they start conversating, just like any other. This happens to be a Mexican restaurant. So they bring out the chips and dip and things of that nature, whatever. And he looks at the menu, everything on the menu. There's nothing over the menu over $9.95. Now let me stop right there for a second. What do you mean there's nothing on the menu over $9.95? Don't millionaire people usually go out and buy caviar and have violins playing when they're listening to their music, when they're eating their food, or, wear tuxedos and things like this? Isn't this what they do? Okay. So here's a guy that's nothing over the menu is $9.95. So continue on with the story. It gets a little more weird. What happens is the decamillionaire all of a sudden reaches in his coat pocket and he pulls out a stick of butter and he lays it on the table. And at this time, Thomas is like, what is going on? He said, that's the only thing I don't like about this place. This is the best Mexican restaurant, I think, place in Texas, in this part of Texas. But one thing I don't like is I don't like the butter. So I always bring my own butter. Isn't that tacky? I thought the millionaires had the best character and, they were real proper and things of this nature, whatever. Here's a guy pulls a stick of butter out of his coat pocket and sets it on the table and tells the guy, tells Thomas, dig in, help yourself. Interesting point. And throughout this book, we're probably on chapter 7 now. It's basically telling me this. Millionaire people are frugal individuals. One of my guys in the investment group, his name is Micah, he put a posting up on Facebook, and he said something like this, to this effect. He said, so let me get this right. You go to school, or you study business and you think outside the box and you do all the things right, then you get taxed more. Because the so-called wealthy gets taxed more than the so-called middle class who can't afford taxes. But here's another thing that I had to put on it. So if the real millionaire people aren't the ones that are actually buying the Mercedes and going out and buying the expensive wines and things like that, because also in the book, they say the average millionaire doesn't spend over $10 in wine. The real millionaire. So my question is, who is actually buying these items? That's easy. The lawyers, the doctors, the people who are middle class who are trying to be rich. That's why they don't have enough to pay for taxes. Because they're so busy trying to be rich, they don't have extra money. They're the ones that are actually in foreclosure and all of these things and can't keep on to the home and don't have extra money. And they say money doesn't last forever. You spend it while you have it. That's the middle class. So what I was saying is that it's very interesting. You know, I knew a lot of this stuff before, but this book here is actually hammering down on the points that, you know, be very careful of what you try to imitate, because I didn't want to imitate that life of the fancy cars and things like that, because think about it. How can you spend money, right? Think about it. How can you spend a lot to become rich? That doesn't make sense. You can't spend your way to become rich. You have to save to become rich. And then when you do become rich, you don't waste your money just because you have it. You know? And these are the main key lessons that I'm actually finding out. So I want to hear your questions and comments, guys. Maybe you guys have similar stories. You know, I can tell on here right now with my subscribers, I have a couple people who are actually millionaires. You know? And you know who you are. And you're the millionaires that I read about in the books. You know? So yeah, that's all I have to say on that issue. I thought it was something that was pretty interesting. So let me hear your thoughts. And if you like the channel, please subscribe, guys. Love to have you. So until next time, signing off.